Okay. You all can see my screen, right? Okay. So these are the different topics that we are going to be covering in this chapter, children. We'll talk about the parts of a plant like we just already spoke about. Okay, then we also spoke about the functions of a plant. After discussing both of these, we will go and look at each of the different, what is the function or types of each of the different parts that we have discussed. Root, stem, flower, fruits, and seeds. We will talk about each of them slightly in detail. Okay. Then we'll also be covering about the life cycle of a plant. So, and there we'll finish talking about the parts, the plants. Then we will, when you talk about animals, we'll talk about a few general characteristics of animals like we just did for plants. We look at a food chain and a food web. Okay, so these are the different things that we are going to be covering in this particular chapter. So let's look at the characteristics of a plant like we just discussed. Okay, so plants are living things just like us. We have just spoken about this. Plants give us the oxygen that we breathe, food that we eat, wood, and several other things are also coming from plants. Now, although plants cannot move from one place to another, we did discuss that some of the parts of the plant, they show movement towards sunlight. They can move towards temperature conditions, and they also, if they have a support. Have you heard about this thing? Have you ever heard about a climber or a creeper? Have you heard about a climber or a creeper? Yes, that's when you talk. Yes, see, when you're talking about creeping or climbing plants, if you provide them a support, they will wrap themselves around that support and move in the direction of the support. Yes or no? If you talk about a money plant, you see how if you provide a stem or a branch, you provide a stick to that money plant, it will start wrapping itself around that stem, right? So that is why we're saying that plants can also move in response to a particular support that you provide to them. Okay, now that is, now I want you all to note down one very important point or a very important term, children. This term is autotrophic. Okay, so we did discuss that plants prepare food on their own through the process of photosynthesis, and organisms which are capable of doing this, they are called as autotrophs or autotrophic organisms. Okay, I'm writing it in the chat box also. So organisms which are capable of making their own food, right? Those organisms, they are called as autotrophic organisms, or you can also call them simply as autotrophs. Yes? Now I need you all to know that you can keep your hands raised, but I will take questions in now and then in between. Okay, after I cover small bits and pieces of our presentation, I will take questions. Okay, because I can't take questions after every sentence, no? So if you have questions, you write it down, keep your hand raised, I'll come to you. Okay, that's fine. Now on this slide, is there any question? Please raise your hand only if you have questions on this slide. Yes, Rian, tell me.
Ma'am, money plant too.
Sorry, what did you say?
I money plant too.
You have a money plant too. Okay, all right. Madhavan, you have a question, beta?
Show the slide. After the class, I have to take notes. I did not take. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. Clear? Any other doubts on this particular slide? No, we have already discussed most of it. Yes. Now, children, before we move on, in this picture, you can also see something called as herbs and shrubs. Do you know what is the difference between the two? Herbs and shrubs. Do you know what is the difference between the two? Yes, Arya?
Shrubs have woody stems and herbs have normal stems.
Very good. That is correct. Shrubs do have slightly woody stems, not as woody as a tree, but they do have more woody stems when compared to herbs. Herbs are very, very soft stems, right? Nanika, do you want to add something?
Shrubs are bushy and herbs are green and have soft stems and only live for only one season called summer.
Okay, yes. So now when you, like we just discussed, children, if you want to note down, please note down that when you're talking about herbs, right, they have very soft and non-woody stems, whereas shrubs, they will have thicker stems, not really woody, but they will have thicker stems, okay? So when you're talking about shrubs, they will have thicker stems, and herbs, they will have soft stems, okay? And also, when you talk about a shrub, they might have many branches at the base, right? Herbs usually don't have branching, okay? Herbs usually don't have branching, but when you talk about a shrub, okay, when you talk about a shrub, they may have many branches arising from the base of the stem. Unlike a tree where the branches are coming from the top, in the shrub, there will be many branches coming from the base itself, okay? And when you talk about examples, all your grasses will be examples of your herbs. Okay, all your grasses will be examples of herbs. Whereas if you talk about a rose plant or an hibiscus plant, those will be examples of your shrubs. Okay, hibiscus plants, rose plants, they will be examples of your shrubs. Whereas your grass, mint, those plants will be examples of your herbs. Is that clear? Yes? All right. Madhukari, do you have a doubt
Ma'am,
on
their
this slide?
properties are different.
Sorry, Ayansh. Yes, their properties are different. That is what we were discussing now. Their properties are different. Yes, Madhukari, tell me.
If you pinch a herb, it will break. Yes.
If you,
Pinch, pinch a herb, it will fall off.
yes, but a shrub will not fall off that easily, right?
To grab it and like fold it into.
Yes, yes, that is correct. See, herbs, because they're very, very soft now, they can break off very easily. But shrubs are relatively more thicker, so they can't be uprooted out of the soil very easily, right? So that is the difference between your herbs and your shrubs. Okay, so give me 1 second. Next. Now we've discussed that plants also breathe, they respire. And one more important point, whenever plants are breathing, they have these small pores on the surfaces of the leaves, which are called as stomata. And this is what helps the plant breathing. This is what helps the plant to breathe, right? So plants have these small pores on the surface of their leaves, which are called as stomata. And this is what helps the plants to breathe. Now we've discussed that the basic parts of a plant are roots, stems, leaf, flowers, fruits, and seeds. When you will know that plants grow from seeds, and they can also grow from other parts of the body. Have you heard that another plant is arising from the stem, or another plant is arising from a leaf? Have you ever heard of that? Have you seen roots arising from the leaves of a plant ever? Have you guys seen a potato? Have you guys seen a potato? You have seen these small, small eyes. You've seen small roots ever arising from a potato? Yes? Yeah. So even for that, you can develop a new plant, right? So it's not that only and only it's not that only seeds will give rise to new plants, but new plants can also arise from different parts of a plant. We'll talk about that in detail later. Okay. But right now, it is important for you to know that it is possible that new plants come from other parts of the plant rather than only from seeds also. Okay. And then I think I just told you that plants can be classified into mainly 3 types. We discussed shrubs, trees, and climbers, right? I told you about shrubs. Yes, they have thicker stems, not exactly woody, and they have many branches arising from the base, right? But when you talk about trees, they are extremely woody. Yes or no? Trees are extremely woody and extremely tall. Yes or no? They have thick, hard, brown stems. Yes. And when you talk about all different types, trees will be the ones which will be the tallest. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I think we discussed about climbers and creepers also. These are basically plants which are growing with the help of a support, right? Which can move in response to or in presence of a support. Clear, children?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
Yes.
Ma'am, climbers don't grow from bottom to top. They go from top to bottom.
They grow from top to bottom. Why do you say that, Ayansh?
Because they look like they're upside down a bit.
They look like that, but see, Ayansh, I mean, they have to have a root, na? So after it's about when, even if you have a support, they'll just keep on growing around that support. So if that support is at the top, it will look like they're falling from that support, but there has to be some root system that they will have as well. Okay.
Okay.
But because they can grow in response to support like that, they're used in decorative purposes, right? So it will look as if they're falling from the top. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, children, just like we discussed about autotrophs, we can also say that plants are producers. Do you guys know the difference between producer versus consumer? Producers versus consumer in biology, do you know? Okay. See, now when talking about producers, we basically, plants are producers. Okay. Now, Madhukari, do you know? You want to tell us?
Yes,
Okay, tell us.
anything that makes its own food and also if it has food for other consumers is known as a producer. It produces things. But a consumer will be the thing that consumes it.
Yes.
It consumes everything. It consumes a producer.
Yes,
Ma'am,
that is correct. Yes, Rian, please tell.
Ma'am, the plants are producer and the primary consumer is the grasshopper and the secondary consumer is the snake, the frog, and the third consumer is snake, and the final consumer is the eagle, and the disposable is fungus.
Okay, all right. Yes, Rian, much of it is correct, but we don't need it so much at this point of time. But I'm glad that you have so much information. Very good. Yes, Madhavan?
Ma'am, can you type that word in the ma'am in the chat box? That's store something. Last slide you no. Store.
What happened? Stomata. Acha, you want me to write it in the word in the chat box? Okay, wait. It is, the spelling came wrong. Give me 1 second. Okay, stomata. All right. So yes, children. So what we're talking about here is that plants are producers. Okay. So basically, these are organisms which are capable of making their own food. And organisms which consume or which eat the plants, they are called as consumers. Okay. Organisms which eat the plants, they are called as consumers. So obviously, they will not be able to make their own food. Okay, Madhavan, please mute, no? Yes. So again, though we know that so they are able to make their own food, which is what is going to give energy for them to grow, to reproduce, and to survive, right? So because they're not only they are unique in this particular character, right? Plants are able to make food on their own. This is a particular unique characteristic that they have, right? Because they are the only living things on earth that are able to make or get their own source of energy. Now, somebody has already mentioned to us that for this process of photosynthesis, they require three major things, right? They require sun, water, and air to particularly perform this photosynthesis. And I want you to write down that from the air, they basically use carbon dioxide. Okay? In the process of photosynthesis, what is used? They use sunlight, they use water, use carbon dioxide from the air. Yes? Rian, I'll come to you. Keep your hand raised. I'll come back to you. Okay? Okay. So children, when you talk about plants, you have two major systems of a plant. Okay? A plant has a root system and a shoot system. Okay? You need to write down that plants can be classified into two particular systems. Before talking about all the parts of a plant will have basically two systems. Okay, it'll have a root system which is present below the ground in general. Okay, we're talking generally because later on you will see that there are some roots which will be present above the ground also. Okay, but when you talk on a broad scale, root system is what is present underground. Okay, and shoot system is anything which is present above the ground. Okay, root system usually present below the ground, and shoot system is what is present above the ground. Now I want you to look at all the different parts that have been labeled in the shoot system, and I want you to particularly look at this part, because this part nobody told me. When I asked you about the different parts of a plant, nobody gave me this name node. Nobody spoke about node, right? So when you're talking about node, children, it is basically the part of the stem. Okay, I need you to write this down in your notebooks. Whenever you're talking about a node, it is the part of the stem from which anything else can arise. It can be leaves, it can be another branch, right? Any other thing that grows. So it can be bud also, right? So nodes are basically where a bud is present, and this can grow into either a leaf or it can either grow into a branch. Okay, so that is called as a node of the plant. I want you to write this down.
Can you
So-
send it in the chat box?
Okay, so 1 second. I have to type it, 1 minute. So this is when you talk about node, it is point where buds are located. Okay, point where buds are located, and these buds, they can either grow into leaves, or they can grow into other branches, or they can grow into flowers also. Okay, so the point where buds are located is basically called your node, and these buds develop into leaves, or they can develop into other branches, or they can develop into flowers also. And children, if you look carefully, you can also see something called as internode. This is not enter, this is internode. I-N-T-E-R, internode. Okay, so that is basically the distance between two nodes. Okay, whatever the distance between two nodes is, that distance, it is called as internode. Okay, the distance between two nodes will be called as internode.
Can you write?
Sorry, Rian, what did you say?
Can you write internode?
Everything I can't write, na, Rian, you have to write it. I'll repeat it 2-3 times, but you try to write, okay? Because long definitions I won't be able to write. Okay. So when you talk about internode, it is basically the distance between two nodes. Can you see the image? All of you look at the image. You can see that two nodes are present, two buds are present, and the distance between those two, that is called as the internode. Yes? Got it? Rian, did you get it? Good. All right. And then finally, one more important part that you guys did not talk about, it was the petiole. It was the petiole. Now, if you look in the diagram, children, if you look in the diagram, if this is your stem, okay, and you have leaves arising from the stem, this particular thing will be the petiole. So can anybody define it looking at this diagram? This is your stem. You have this line and you have the leaf. I am labeling this line as the petiole. So can you think about what this petiole is? Yes, Arya?
Branch.
No, not branch exactly. You won't say exactly as a branch, because see, a branch will have many leaves present on it, no? Yes or no? A branch will have many leaves. Yes, Nanika?
The center line in the leaf is called petiole.
Okay. Okay, any other, can you modify it? Yes, Animesh?
A stalk.
Yes, that is the correct word. Very good, Animesh. That is the word that we should be using. We're talking about a stalk. Okay, so it is the stalk which is connecting your main stem or your main plant to the leaf, right? The stalk or the axis that is attaching the leaf to the main stem. Okay, that is what is called as the petiole. The stalk or the axis, I will write this word, stalk or axis, that is attaching your main leaf to the stem of the plant, right? That is called as your petiole. Is this clear, children? I think most of the other parts you guys had covered. You spoke about leaves, fruit, stem, flowers,
Mom,
right? Yes.
there is axillary bud.
We will talk about axillary and terminal bud when we talk about the details of each of them. Now I'll talk about it at that point of time. Okay. Yeah, so we have discussed most of this. So next, this slide was the summary slide. I think we discussed now what are the different functions of roots, leaves, flowers, stem. We spoke about how roots are getting water from the soil. Yes, how it is giving support to the, how it is connecting the roots to the ground. Yes, then we spoke about how the stem is connecting the roots to the rest of the plant. It is getting the different nutrients from the plant, right? And then we said that leaf is what is making food for the plants. Did we discuss the different functions? We discussed this, right?
Mom.
Yes. All right. So from the next class, children, since the time is up, we will stop here. And in the next class, like I told you earlier, what we will be discussing is, so we have covered the parts and the functions of a plant. We will be starting from discussing all the different